Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's a bit surreal, isn't it? I feel like I met a lot of you, like virtually, and now I'm getting to meet you all in person for the first time. And really, Jillian, thank you so much, you and the SI Lab team, for putting this together. So, like, big round of applause for you all. This is awesome. This is really awesome. Here's the clicker. Got it. Awesome. Well, first and foremost, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Michael Howard. I am the CEO and founder of Nichefire, where we specialize in cultural trends. Specifically, we help businesses understand and predict the impact of emerging consumer, political, economic, societal trends on their brands, on their consumers. And so that's our specialty. That right there, that QR code goes right to my LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out. I love people reaching out and love getting questions and whatnot. So I'll just show this slide again later so you can connect with me. But let's start. So obviously today we're going to be talking about cultural insights. But specifically, I want to focus on how do we measure cultural insights. Because it's a lot more than just looking at volume of mentions or search volume or even the amount of engagements that occur on different posts. Culture is kind of an enigma. I mean, there's so many different things that we can measure about culture. And so today, what we're going to be learning about is how cultural insights differ from other kinds of insights and what they can tell us about people, how to measure cultural insights beyond mentions and what to look for, and how new communities can develop out of cultural trends. Let's set a baseline. What is culture? Well, culture, at least in the context of social intelligence and the kind of work that we do. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have your own definition or your own view of what that is, but this is at least how we define it. Again, in the context of social intelligence. And so, if you think about it, it's really the ingredients that build up a community. It's the ingredients behind the common interests, the common behaviors, the common ideas, the common objectives between people that are building up within a community. And so whether it's, your favorite sports team, whether it's, passion for the latest pop group, maybe it's politics or something like that. Those sort of themes are the embodiment of how culture develops within a community. And of course, there's a lot of nuances there, but those are at least some of the core themes that we look at for this. And so one of the things we do need to get straight right away is how do cultural insights differ from the other type of trend insights that we look at? Because we break this down into 3 different categories. There's a lot of different ways we can measure different trends. But at the start, we have topic. And so topic is more or less looking at specific characteristics. Think of like your brand, right? And so you're able to put a specific keyword or a query together around your brand, and you're able to learn more about what are people saying about your brand? What are they saying about your products? What are they saying about the experience shopping for you, right? And so pretty simple. It starts at the top right there, but then we can break that down and expand that query a bit more into category. So categories, when we start looking more into trends and insights around our industry or our market. So things like, what are competitors up to? Or how's the latest policies impacted the way that we do business, and how are they impacting consumers, right? And so it expands that a little bit. But where it starts to get a little bit more interesting is when we talk about culture. Because you require this intuitive understanding of the audience, the perception of consumers in this sort of category here. Because a lot of it is external forces that are impacting you, your brand, your consumers, that sort of thing. And it's kind of hard to just go and pick up on that. And so things like this, for instance, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the way consumers shop? How do they impact the way consumers go back to work? How's the latest TV show impacted the way people think about other arts and entertainments category? Stuff like that. And so there's a lot of really diverse characteristics of this that are just kind of pretty ethereal and pretty enigmatic. So let's start by understanding how do we start measuring these things. So at Nichefire, some of the things that we've done is to start topically. What are some of the emerging cultural themes that we can explore within these communities? And so we see things like arts and entertainment. And so these are things like, hey, people talking about games, talking about sports, talking about TV shows, movies, you name it. So a lot of those arts and entertainment categories are prominent here. And you have health and personal development. So this is more or less the mental, emotional, physical health and well-being that people are passionate about talking about. Industry and business, pretty straightforward, but anything from the financial markets to entrepreneurship could be discussed in this kind of category. Politics and social issues, so current events, major social issues like education or the environment, and fall under this area. Science and technologies, and then society and culture, things like hobbies, travel, cuisine, stuff like that. And so we look at this stuff topically because it helps us understand the what's. What's going on within the community? How are they? What are they talking about? Gives us a sense of foundation how we can start there. And one of the things we do in our platform is we break these down into many subcategories as well, so you can get more specific context. But in terms of looking at this at a meta level, kind of fall under these 6 categories often. So. The other important reason why you want to topically look at these things is because it helps you understand whether or not there are emerging themes that are kind of transcending into new characteristics. So for instance, let's use a TV show example. Say there's a community that's really passionate about a TV show and they love talking about it, and they're really big fans of that show. But then, say a political scandal happens. And now that community is starting to draw correlations between that political scandal that occurred and then, with the TV show that they're really passionate about, and now you start picking up political discourse within that conversation. We see this all the time, where you start to see those kind of topics start to expand within that community. And so where we go from here is now we need to kind of dissect and understand a little bit more about how we measure these key topical characteristics and being able to measure them more effectively and to understand how are these themes developing, what characteristics can we look at about that. And so, for instance, emotional characteristics. So the dynamic behind the emotions in the community is the whole reason why people have purpose. And so they, more or less, for instance, like emotional characteristics of this is the reason why they're passionate about certain things. So why they, maybe they have a common hatred for something or a common love for something. Or say they have, they're really impacted, their impact is based on the way they think about certain things and how they feel about certain things. And so those are some of the things we see common within that. Those emotional characteristics are incredibly prominent because you're measuring essentially the passion of that community. But then you also have influences. And so these are the organizations, individuals, the entities that can influence a community's opinions. So like a cultural community's opinions, whether it's, a deity in your religion, or it could be a news channel that your community really highly regards. Say if you have you're part of a really conservative, conservative community or something like that. There's a news channel that you prefer. Or say it's your favorite player on your favorite sports team. These are all individuals, entities, organizations that have a massive impact on the way people think, talk about things because they're so well regarded in their community. They have platforms. Seems simple enough, but we can really learn a lot about how communities, how trends develop on the basis of how they progress from platform to platform. And so it helps us understand a bit more about how are these communities communicating with one another? How are they learning about things? How are they hearing about things? And so, for example, you take breaking news on, from just news media, right? So take breaking news. It often gets picked up by journalists on Twitter. And then you see, people start to research that on Google and Wikipedia, and then they start talking about it amongst their communities, and then that emboldens a new narrative within their community. And so you can see how the platform progression really plays a role in how these trends develop and how culture develops within those communities. Then, of course, societal characteristics. This is where we're starting to understand the nature of the people within these communities. And so, I'm from America. But I can, this is my first time in London too, and so I can for certain say that, the slang, the mannerisms and whatnot are vastly different than what I'm used to in the U.S. And that's because, these are the kind of societal characteristics that I'm used to. And there's a lot of communities that have their own slang, their own ways of addressing others, their own ways of talking about things that they're passionate about. So maybe a good example here would be like the academic community, for instance. So when they are publishing a journal, or publishing an article to a journal, they have to have a very specific way of doing that. If you're addressing your peers, there's a very specific way that they're doing that. It's because it's kind of the culture that they've embodied in the academic community. And lastly, the interconnectedness. So what I mean by that is kind of like the origination of how culture transcends to another characteristics in culture, another theme in culture, I should say. And so, for instance, like I mentioned with that TV show, where there's or it's an arts and entertainment category, but then you have an inflection point with, a political scandal that causes the shift in the thoughts and, in that culture, right? So it's more or less the way we look at the intermingling of different cultural themes and how they impact one another. So that's how we look at interconnectedness with that. And I have a great example here. So how many of you have either watched the show The Last of Us on HBO or Sky, or have played the video game The Last of Us? Got a lot of people here. Awesome. I love the show. I haven't played the video game yet, but I love the show, and I think I might play the video game because I'm a little bit of a gamer myself. But the first game in the series was launched in 2013, and as a result of that, I mean, you get like a niche, passionate audience starting to build up. They love the game. If you're not familiar with the game, it's more or less like a survival horror game where you're fighting zombies and bad people alike and that sort of thing. But we've been able to see like a passionate community build up on platforms like Reddit, for instance. And so there's been a lot of popularity built up over time, and you see a sequel come out for that game, and then a remaster of the original game come out, and then what you're able to see from that is that community expands to massive communities on Twitch and Discord and Instagram and all these different channels. And it gets to the point where HBO notices and, hey, we should pick this up as a show. This could be really prominent content for us. Now, this is a really tricky situation for HBO, though. I mean, you think about kind of like the Star Wars effect. You have a really passionate community that already exists, and you're about to create new content with that source material. You have to get it right, or else you're going to piss off a lot of people. So luckily for HBO, they kind of hit it out of the park. So they didn't get any outrage. In fact, the core audience that played the game actually loved the content. But then also too, like you get new people introduced to the TV show, love the TV show as well. It gets so popular to the point where you start to see new trends. So Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, you see a new invigoration in their careers, and a lot of trending around past TV shows they were a part of. So things like the Game of Thrones, trending again, Mandalorian, trending again. And you also see a lot of memes come up around Pedro Pascal as a result too. Anything from him being embedded in a video, just eating a sandwich in the corner, or the one where he's like kind of looking longingly at Nicolas Cage. I love that one. But I mean, but in addition to this too, you start to see kind of a flow of new cultural themes come about. Linda Ronstadt, for instance, I mean, she had a song that's featured on an episode, just one episode in this show, and it started trending on Spotify and TikTok, and so you see a lot of themes around that. Features on Saturday Night Live, and then bring it full circle back to a reinvigoration of interest in the actual video game series as well. So you can kind of see like how these things kind of flow and how we can kind of explore how this community has developed over time. And the beautiful thing is that we can see all of this unfold before our eyes. And so, a real example too that we did with a customer as well was for a company that was focused on. I'm just gonna. So it was more or less a company focused around like vitamins, mineral supplements, and so we were helping them just kind of evaluate the space. Hey, what are some emerging themes that are going on in vitamins, minerals, and supplements that we should be aware of? And so one of the things that came about was nootropics. I don't know if you know what nootropics are. Traditionally, they're like vitamins and supplements that help with like memory and focus and stuff like that. And initially, you can see like very passionate communities where you get people that are like stacking up different nootropic supplements just to experiment with the different effects that they have in their perception, their focus, and stuff like that. It's really interesting. I don't know if I would try that or not. But one of the big things that we picked up on is that you see, like, hey, from the web traffic patterns, and then also like cross-referencing with the social data and then the search data and stuff like that, we've been able to see significant spike upwards of nootropic popularity. Why is that? Oh, there's one more thing over here. And so one of the things that we learned about, I'm just going to click through that again. Cool. So one of the things that we learned about is that, well, it's not necessarily the traditional nootropics community that is building up the popularity from it. It's actually starting to be picked up by communities that are talking about mental health issues. So individuals that are having issues with their own mental health, their own anxiety and stuff like that, they're trying to find ways in which they can alleviate those pain points so that way they can lead a better life. And so one of the things they're looking to nootropics for is the opportunity to have better sleep, better energy, stress relief, reducing anxiety, a lot of these depression-related symptoms that they're trying to address, and we can validate that with the social data on top of like the different themes that we've been able to see. And so for the client, we were able to identify like, hey, when you start to think about nootropics as a potential opportunity for a new product line, maybe think about it in the terms of how it can potentially benefit mental health. You could be helping a lot of people that way. And so it's like stuff like this that's gotten us really passionate. And so that's why we built our platform, TrendFire. Actually, too, I'm really proud to announce that we're going to be launching this platform starting mid-May. And you can get a quick little sneak peek at our booth later. But the premise of our platform is that we want to help companies understand the emerging opportunities that are out in the space and allow them to jump on it with the foresight that they need, or identify opportunities and reputation where they could preserve or defend their brand values, right? And so some of the things that we're going to be helping customers do is turn unknown unknowns into actionable insight. Because with a lot of social listening tools, you require this preconceived notion to type in a query, and then you have to get you get the data from that. The issue is that we don't know what we don't know. And so what our platform is doing is syndicating data from search, social, looking at web traffic, and understanding all the emerging themes and trends that are coming from these platforms to more or less present the insights to you. So essentially, we're looking at one of the most robust views of the voice of the consumer that could be available in the market. But we're also helping predict the impact of these trends before they happen. And so we're looking at the qualitative and quantitative characteristics of all these patterns in the data to then make projections that could look upwards of 3, 6, 12 months into the future of how they'll play out. And lastly, capitalize on opportunities faster and helping you reduce risks. And so we know, real time's not fast enough. We all know that. And so that's one of the reasons why we're leveraging AI to help simplify that experience, help with that analysis. We're actually implementing GPT-4 as part of our platform to, A, help contextualize and clean up queries so that way you get very, very clean results going into the platform, and then B, providing descriptions and highlights of themes within the platform as well, so that way you don't have to do as much analysis paralysis within that. So those are some of the things that we're kind of doing in our platform to help pick up opportunities from those themes in those trends. But here's a quick example. I'm just gonna. So here's kind of like how we're doing it with so here's an example with Bitcoin. And so looking at data, observed data from web traffic data from 2021 with Bitcoin, right? We looked at all those qualitative and quantitative patterns within that and made our projection associated with that. And then over time, we were able to overlay our projection with the observed values. You can see just right on the money how that prediction, that in the blue line, was with that particular trend pattern. And that's because, like I said, we're looking at all those qualitative and quantitative variables. But not just for Bitcoin, we're looking at that for NFTs. We're looking at that for Ethereum or other financial indicators, right? And so that combination of different insight helps us really build out a really, really robust database of emerging trends that we can use as training data for that. And so we're helping companies, major brands, make the next decisions and better insight on those opportunities and reputation opportunities. So, Lindsay, I see you, so I got you. So without further ado, I want to thank you very much for your time. Again, that's my QR code for my LinkedIn, so please feel free to reach out. But thank you very much.
Does anybody have a question? Question, Michael? Oh, Thomas does.
Just quickly on the Bitcoin example, how far out did you guys need to be to predict that very accurate trend and forecast it forward?
Sorry, are you talking about in terms of how much history we needed from that? And so if I recall correctly, I think we looked at maybe just a year or two of history from that. The other aspect of this too is not just looking at just Bitcoin, it's looking at patterns and other trends samples. So more or less what we're doing is continuously building up a database of this data and what more or less definitions of what these trends are, from those emotional characteristics, cultural context, what are some influences in that. We can use that as a way to model out what these projections can look like. And so that's kind of like what's powering our prediction engine from that.
Brilliant. Oh, the demon mic. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, Michael. Michael will be outside on his booth if you have any questions, want to follow up with him. And Khalil is also here in the audience as well. But Michael, thank you very much for sharing. Thank you.